The Schrodinger's Catbox.
Hello, this is Dan Nobles and welcome to the Schrodinger's Catbox. In this video, I'd like to talk about the theory of war. And what do I mean by the theory of war? Basically, why does the human race war? Why do we have skirmishes? Why do we have battles? Why do we have all-out world war against each other? So the obvious reason or reasons are ideologies a lot of the time. We have very, very different cultures around the world. So we fear what we don't understand. So we tend to build up prejudices and discriminations against people who are not like us. And this has been evident time and time again across continents, across countries, across nations, within inner cities, within small towns. So what you really have to do is boil it down, I think, to human nature. And then you have to ask the question, what makes us feel this way towards fellow human beings? Where does this hatred come from? And then I guess you could start to get into things like good and evil. Where does good and evil come from? What makes us one way or the other? But I think the key, at least in my opinion, the key to why we war against each other and why we hate against each other as humans boils down to fear. When you don't understand something about somebody else, there is an inherent fear that we have that they're doing something that we don't know about, they're doing something that we don't like, they're doing something that may hurt us. And these fears, even though they may be unfounded or maybe they may be real, either real or imagined, it's something that builds up inside of us as part of our makeup of our psyche as a human being. There are, I think, different cultures that are more susceptible to trusting on certain levels. I mean, probably not something that would be easily measured, but it really comes down to the individuals. And I think maybe I'm being optimistic, but I think the basic human nature is to want to trust people. Once you meet somebody and you learn what they're about, what they're doing, and get that information, then you're like, okay, that's fine, we can get along. But when you don't understand who you're dealing with and you don't understand the people that are far away from you and what they're doing, then it tends to create this animosity, this fear that we have. And then there are governments. My personal opinion, again, this is my personal opinion, and that is that governments create a very, very high percentage of the problem. The reason that I say that is because I have talked individually to people all over the world. And individually, once you talk to them, they tend to be very friendly. They tend to be understanding of the stupidity of political type agendas. That's just my own personal experience. But I've seen enough of it that I personally believe that the key is the governments need to make the change. Now, governments, granted, are made up of people, individual people, but when you have a group of people moving as an entity such as a government, they take on a sort of governmental personality, let's call it, of their own. And they make these decisions based on what they believe is the best for everyone. And of course, as we've seen from various governments all over the world, including the U.S. government, that's not always the best case. Once governments have control and they are running things, they're running the show, they have the capability to keep secrets from the people. They have the ability, in some case, I'm going to say it would be justified keeping certain secrets from the public. I can go into that in a separate video, but when you have, the more power you have, the more you have to have the wisdom in order to wield that power. And if your power grows to a point where you don't have the wisdom, I mean, it's the old saying, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So in order to successfully have an organization like a government that runs what many would agree on to be the correct way, they would have they would need the wisdom in order to wield that power. And as we've seen so many times, they just don't have the wisdom. Now, does that mean that we need to get rid of all the governments and just have people run their own countries individually? You need some kind of organization. You need some kind of structure, hierarchy within a country. But what is happening in the world today is we are on the brink of global change. What I mean by that is, when you talk about global change, I'm not talking about global warming right now or climate change or anything like that. I'm talking about global human change. And what I mean by that is we're all becoming more connected. One of the biggest things that happened in the 20th century was the internet to connect people. It started connecting the world in ways never before seen. For example, YouTube. Now, almost anybody in the world can post their opinions or see what is happening in other countries just by looking at videos or posting videos on the internet. But YouTube is just a small part of it. I mean, it is truly the information highway. Unless you live in some of these countries that have blocked the internet or tried to block it. So we're becoming more connected with communication, which is good. The language barriers are starting to break down. You go into different countries around the world, and many people speak English. I'm not saying that that should be the adopted human language. I think that a group of highly skilled linguists should get together and either create a language or designate a language that makes the most sense in order to convey communication the fastest and easiest way possible, where people, it should be a language that's easy to learn and should be something that can convey communication effectively. Anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but so we're getting closer with communication. Look at what Europe's doing with the European Union. Countries are starting to gather together. Really, we're starting to outgrow borders. And when that happens, some people aren't ready for that. And that is what terrorism is a response to. Unfortunately, whenever change happens, whether it is good or bad, there will always be sectors that are fighting this change. So in order for man to stop war, humans to stop their warring and their fighting and all of this, in order for peace to truly exist, I think we need to come together as a species and not as nations or countries with different political agendas. Now, of course, the obvious challenge to this is people do think differently. They do have different ideas of how things should be done. So we need to get past, maybe there will be some, main areas, say like, just as an example, it wouldn't be this way, but just say continents. Each continent had their own specific type of union, of government, a way of doing things. Or say maybe there was like 3 main entities on the earth that had very specific ways to run their national entity. If that could be done where there's an understanding between these entities that they are coexisting, much like 2 countries that border each other that are friendly, that get along, they understand that they do things differently, but they coexist peacefully. If that could be done, and of course that's a huge challenge, but if that could be done, I think that is one method to go for. And as we move forward in time and we see more and more of these, the European Union becoming larger, and different entities maybe collectively getting together, that could be a possibility. I mean, that's probably very too much optimism on my part, but to me, what really would do it for the human race is we need an alien invasion. Now, you're probably laughing when you hear that, but here is my reasoning behind this. And not saying that the alien invasion would happen or that it could possibly happen, but that is what we need. That is that, or an asteroid heading toward the Earth that's going to completely destroy the Earth unless we all work together and to stop it. Whenever humans have to band together in order to protect themselves, that is when we coexist at our finest. And something like an alien invasion that threatens the entire Earth, not, I'm just going to pick on this country here, or a natural disaster that's going to threaten the entire Earth unless we work together in order to stop it, that is something that would bring us together. All of a sudden, when that happens, we're not these little petty human beings bickering back and forth in our own little petri dish that have our own little problems to worry about. All of a sudden, we have a common problem, and we need to work together in order to solve it. And when you work together, you start to learn about the person next to you. You learn what their point of view is. You learn where they're coming from. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I guess, we're not having any alien invasions. And we haven't yet seen a threat from space that is significant enough that it would need to bring the entire human race together in order to work together. And in fact, probably if there was a threat from space, it would be, I'm not sure that there would be enough nations that would be able to get involved in order to help with that. I'm thinking probably 5 major nations could probably band together to help with something like that. And we need the entire Earth, we need the entire planet to band together in order to have a common purpose. So that is my suggestion for the resolution of war in order to most quickly solve the warring issue. But most likely something like that will not happen. It's going to take mankind growing up and learning to understand differences and understand prejudice, discrimination, and how to appreciate the value that others bring. And that's just individually. Think about nations. Think about what countries bring to the table when you look at individual countries. If you were to generalize on countries, if you were to Think about what benefit different countries have. Just off the top of your head and making a huge generalization. What do you think about? If you think about Germany, well, me personally, if I think about Germany, I think engineering. German engineer, I mean, they're known for their engineering. If I think about Japan, I think technology. Look at the level of technology that has come out of Japan. If I think about France, I think aesthetic values and art, that sort of thing. And I'm, this is all my opinion. This is not, and this is very generalizations. When I think about America, I think, or U.S., I think about ingenuity. And each nation that you look at, you can kind of get a sort of feel of what their true power is. What their real benefit is. And when you take that and you focus down to individuals within nations have all of these qualities and more. And to war against people that are from the same race is just ridiculous, but this is where we're at right now. So that is me on the theory of war. One final comment is what I see a lot of, and that is a lot of people are saying that just do away with religion and that'll solve our warring problems. And that is completely ridiculous. Religions do not make war. People make war. People make war, and they do it in the name of religion, whether they interpret that religion to their means or not, to their liking or not. So, as you can see with this extremist group that is currently out there, you know what I'm talking about. They've warped the values of the religion, the one that they decided that they would use for their purposes, and they do it in the name of religion. So you say, well, okay, well, let's just do away with religion, then they won't have that to do it in the name of. Well, guess what? They're going to do it regardless. And they're going to use any excuse that they can use. Religion is an easy target. You can say, here is a set of rules that is followed, so we have to do this. It says we have to do this. We're going to use that as the purpose. Religion does not cause wars. The removal of religion, personal belief, philosophy, all of that is not going to solve your problems. Start to show a little bit of trust to your fellow human being and start to try to understand their point of view a little bit. YouTube is one of the worst petri dishes there is. There is so many people that just jump on things and they, are quick to just rip into somebody and tear them down for, making a comment on their opinion. And granted, a lot of these opinions that come out are the same way. They just throw it out there with no thought of who they might offend or what they're really saying. And I guess that speaks to the level of intelligence of a lot of people that are making these comments. And like any other social media where you have people who have intelligent comments or answers and post intelligent things, there's also the people that are completely the opposite, and there's everybody there in between. Anyway, getting far enough off that topic. The topic was war. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, this is my own opinion. I know that not everybody agrees with it, and I know you have your own opinion. Feel free to comment, subscribe. Thank you, and I'll catch you in the next video.